So, before continuing with the reading of the chapter, let's have a quick recap. The story, The Bond of Love, it is a story of love and friendship between an animal and a human being. So, in the beginning of the story, the narrator tells that how he accidentally found this sloth bear, a baby bear, and he brought this cub to his home. So, he tells us that how he was passing with his friends through the sugarcane field, and there he saw some people driving away the wild pigs from their field. They were shooting at them, and suddenly a sloth bear came out of the field. One of the narrator's companion, he shot at the bear and the bear died. They observed something that a bear cub, it was riding on its mother's back and it was crying and running around the dead animal. The writer and his companions, they ran after the cub and they caught it. The author, he brought this cub to his house and he presented it to his wife. The wife was extremely happy to see the bear and she named the bear as Bruno. And thus, the author's wife, she brought up Bruno with love and care. She also looked after the bear cub. She taught the bear cub how to drink milk from the bottle. And within a few days, Bruno, he started eating normally and he almost ate everything. The author mentions that how he ate porridge. He ate porridge made of ingredients like vegetables, fruits, nuts, etc. And he also drank tea, coffee, lime juice, even aerated water, beer, and alcoholic liquor. And he also says that how Bruno he became attached to the children of the tenants and also with the two Alsatian dogs that he had. And with the passage of time, Bruno he started playing and running into the kitchen. So here after that the author he shared two examples about the eating habits of Bruno, and he talks about an unfortunate accident that occurred, that how the author had put some poison barium carbonate in his library in order to kill the rats, and Bruno he entered the library and he ate that poison. Paralysis attack was there. Bruno could not stand on his feet, and Bruno was immediately taken to a veterinary doctor. The doctor there he gave Bruno an injection, but the first injection did not bring any change in the condition of Bruno. Bruno was breathing very heavily, and he was vomiting also, feeling very weak. But the doctor he decided to give another injection, and after that injection, Bruno's condition started improving. So after that, after half an hour, Bruno was back on his feet and was having a good meal. And he also shares another occasion where little Bruno, he drank a lot of engine oil. The author had taken out the engine oil from the inner tank of the American car that he had. He had kept that oil to kill the termites, but Bruno drank it. And author says that luckily it did not have any effect on Bruno. So today we will start from paragraph 12. The months rolled on, and Bruno had grown many times in the size he was when he came. Months rolled by means months passed by, and Bruno he started growing rapidly. He had equaled the Alsatians in height and had even outgrown them. So, as he was growing at a fast speed, he had actually equaled the height of the two Alsatians dog that the narrator had. एंड देन ही आउटग्रीव देम. वो जो ब्रूनो था वो उन डॉग से भी और ऊंचा होता चला गया, बट वॉज जस्ट एज स्वीट, जस्ट एज मिस्चीवस, जस्ट एज playful. But Bruno, he was still very sweet animal. He did not develop any wild emotions at that moment, although he was growing rapidly. He was still very naughty. Mischievous means still naughty. Playful. He was quite humorous. He used to be very friendly with all, and he was still playful, and he was very fond of all of us. So Bruno, he enjoyed the company of all the people, those who were there. That is the narrator, his son, his wife, even the company of tenants' children, and the two Alsatian dogs. Above all, he loved my wife. But he says that Bruno, he loved author's wife dearly. Bruno was favorite of author's wife and she loved him too. So the love was mutual. Bruno loved author's wife and the wife also loved Bruno very much. She had changed his name from Bruno to Baba, a Hindustani word signifying small boy. You know, in Hindustani, जो छोटे बच्चे होते हैं, sometimes we also call them Baba. So instead of calling Bruno, the bear calling Bruno, the wife of the author, she started calling Bruno as Baba. And he could do a few tricks too. Bruno had learned playing some tricks with different kind of things. So author says, at the command Baba wrestle or Baba box, he vigorously tackled anyone who came forward for a rough and tumble. So he says that whenever someone gave him the command, Baba box or wrestle, whosoever person would come in his front, he would tackle him. He will just tumble him down and start wrestling with him. So this way, it was this activity was not just done to harm anyone. Bruno, he loved playing these kind of tricks. So this way, we see that how playful he was, how friendly he was with others. He also learned some trick. So with this command, Bruno, what he would do, he would start boxing with anybody who was near him. Author also adds about the another trick when he says, give him a stick and say, Baba, hold gun. And he pointed the stick at you. So, when you give the command, Baba, hold a gun, he would point the stick at the person standing in front of him. And if you ask him, Baba, where's baby? And he immediately produced and cradled affectionately a stump of wood which he had carefully concealed in its straw bed. स्ट्रॉ बेड जो प्राली होती है उससे बना हुआ जो बेड होता है. सो वेन एवर यू गेव ब्रूनो द कमांड वेयर्स द बेबी, he would very affectionately, he would bring a stick which he used to hide under his straw bed and would hold him in his hand the way you hold a child, and he would start cradling it. So झूला झुलाने लगता था, showing the action of holding a baby in hand. So this way Baba had learned certain tricks and he used to play these tricks to entertain people. He was friendly with all the people there. But because of Tennant's children, poor Bruno or Baba had to be kept chained most of the time. Now, Bruno, he has overgrown in size. So, he became too big to be kept at home. And he was so big that the children of tenants, they actually used to get scared of Bruno's size. So, the author had to keep him chained most of the time. So, that way, it was becoming for Bruno also, and for the other people also there, it was a difficult time for Bruno then. Then my son and I advised my wife, and friends advised her too, to give Baba to the zoo at Mysore. Seeing the problems that they were facing, then the author's son and author himself advised his wife that they should give Bruno to the zoo at which was at Mysore. Author's friends also advised her the same thing. So it was getting too big to keep at home. He was getting too big to keep at home. He here is Bruno. He was growing in size. So it was becoming difficult to keep Bruno at home. And that is why the suggestion was given to wife that they should send Bruno to a zoo. But the wife was not ready at that moment. She did not want to get separated from Bruno. But after some weeks of such advice, she had at last consented. Consented means agreed to the suggestion. But seeing the condition that how everybody was facing problem, the author's wife, she readily agreed that they would send Bruno to zoo. Hastily means hurriedly, jaldbazi se, before she could change her mind, a letter was written to the curator of the zoo, the person who takes care of the zoo, the in charge of the zoo. A letter was written hurriedly to that person. Why? Because the author was in fear that his wife would definitely change her mind. And before she does that, it was better to write a letter to the curator of the zoo. Did he want a tame bear for his collection? Tame कहते हैं पालतू जानवर. So क्या वो एक पालतू जानवर को रखना चाहेंगे? पालतू भालू को. He replied, yes. The zoo sent a cage from Mysore in a lorry. Lorry जो ट्रक होती है उसे कहते हैं. A distance of 87 miles, and Baba was packed off. Packed off means sent. So the curator was also happy to take this bear, tame bear, in his zoo, and he readily agreed. And then a lorry was sent from Mysore, and a cage was also there in the truck. Then Bruno was placed in that cage and taken to the zoo. So he was packed off, he was sent to the zoo. We all missed him greatly, but in a sense, we were relieved. The author says that although Bruno was sent, but they all missed him. And but in a sense, we were relieved. A kind of relaxation was there, relief was there for all of them, because it was for the betterment of Bruno and all other people, those who were there in Bangalore, staying with the author. So, seeing the benefits of the both, it was agreed that Bruno would be sent, and author felt that it was definitely a good decision taken by, and that's why they were relieved. But he says, my wife was inconsolable. Console karna, सांत्वना देना, हौसला बढ़ाना, control karna. So it was difficult to console the wife of the author. She wept and fretted. जो wife थी, she used to love Bruno dearly, and she was missing him. So she cried and fretted. She became unhappy. She became worried. And for the first few days, she would not eat a thing. So, as she was missing Bruno, she did not eat for the first few days. Then she wrote a number of letters to the curator. How was Baba? Back came the replies, well, but fretting. He refuses food too. So, in order to know the condition of Bruno, she wrote some letters to the curator of the zoo, and she got replies that he was all right but was refusing to take food as he was feeling sad, he was feeling unhappy. After that, friends visiting Mysore were begged to make a point of going to the zoo and seeing how Baba was getting along. So few of narrator's friends, a few friends, they were visiting Mysore. So they were requested to see that when they visit Mysore, they also visit the zoo and they see the condition of Baba there. They reported that he was well but looked very thin and sad. So they did accept the request made by the author and they went to the zoo. They met Bruno there and they found that Bruno was very sad. He had become very thin because he had refused to eat food. He was not in a good condition. All the keepers at the zoo said he was fretting. And the people, those who were there in the zoo, the keepers that were there, they all said the same thing, that he was unhappy. He was not in a good condition. For 3 months, I managed to restrain my wife from visiting Mysore. The author somehow tried to stop his wife from visiting Mysore, and it was for the period of 3 months. He tried his best possible efforts to stop his wife from going to Mysore. But then one day she said, I must see Baba. Either you take me by car or I will go myself by bus or train. So I took her by car. So one day, when it was not uh, easy for the wife, she missed so much that she decided to visit Mysore. And she came and told her husband that she wanted to go to Mysore. So she compelled him by saying that he should take her or she would go by herself, taking a bus or train. And thus the narrator had to surrender and he took the wife to Mysore, to the zoo. Friends had conjectured that the bear would not recognize her. Conjectured means they had an opinion, they formed an opinion that the bear would not recognize her, he would forget his wife. So They had this opinion because it is said that the wild animals, they don't remember things for a long time. They forget people, they forget that kind of emotion. And thus they had made this remark that the bear would not recognize author's wife. I had thought so too. The narrator also had the same opinion. But while she was yet some yards from his cage, Baba saw her and recognized her. So the author says that, but the things came to be little different. When the author's wife, she went to zoo, she was still some yards away from the cage. Bruno was able to see her and recognize her. He howled with happiness, and Bruno, he cried with happiness. She ran up to him, petted him through the bars, and he stood on his head in delight. So when Bruno he saw Otto's wife, when she was still far away from the cage, he recognized her. He cried with happiness, and Otto's wife, she ran to him and she patted him. And Bruno, he stood up on his head in delight. In his happiness, Bruno, he stood on his head. वो अपने सिर के बल खड़ा हो गया just to share his happiness on meeting author's wife. For the next 3 hours, she would not leave that cage. She gave him tea, lemonade, cakes, ice cream, and what not. And then closing time came, and we had to leave. So the narrator's wife, she had spent long 3 hours there with Bruno, sitting beside the cage. And she gave Bruno tea, lemonade, cakes, and ice cream, the things that Bruno loved to eat. She brought those things along with her, and Bruno ate those things lavishly. And then the closing time came, and the author had to leave from there with his wife. My wife cried bitterly. Baba cried bitterly too. So both were again sad. When they met, they were really happy. They expressed their delight. They sat for long hours together. But when the time came for closing, the author's wife, she wept bitterly. She felt that she could not live without the bear. And thus we see that how Bruno also cried bitterly. So, see the way the emotions are shown here. We find that how love and compassion is also felt by animals too. They also have emotions and they express their emotions. And thus, we see how an animal is so close to a woman that he missed her dearly. He could not bear the pain of separation. And when the time came for to get separated again, they both cried bitterly. So, dear students, today we are going to stop here and we will continue the rest part in the next session.